everybody. Welcome to Cafecito con Claudia y Ana. My name is Ana Robles. I'm here with GTS Credit, and we're very excited today because we have a special guest, Amy Valdivia from SoCal Lifestyle TV.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Cordova here with GTS Credit, and I'm very excited to be sharing this morning all of our knowledge and expertise. One of our main focuses is through having Cafecito here with us is to educate, to let people know exactly what we do, how we do it, and our experience, because a lot of the times you may know how to do something, but if you don't have the experience or the background or the knowledge, you could also mislead or misguide someone. So it's very important, and I'm excited to be here with Amy because you guys need to follow her, all her videos every day, so she's awesome. So Amy, go ahead. Give us a little bit about you.
Thank you for having me. I am Amy Valdivia, and I am representing SoCal Lifestyle TV. And yes, absolutely, you are correct. The more information we put out and the broader we can reach, we can educate many, many more people, and we can help them. We can help them on the road to home ownership. And the wonderful thing about home ownership is that it's a journey. It's not something that has to happen immediately. And my mission is to get people in homes, but to get them in homes correctly. And usually we start with what? Credit. So I'm here in a wonderful environment with the gals over here at GTS that can definitely get us started and get people started in the right directions. With that, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for being here. We're excited to be able to share some of your knowledge along with some of the tips that we could offer our consumers, our clients, to be on their path to owning a home. In your perspective, how important is it to have credit for your clients?
Well, first and foremost, to own a home, you have to have credit, period. Yes, in the past there have been programs that say, oh, no credit is okay. Remember that those are all publications to reel you in. They're all advertisements to get you in. But you want to establish good credit. And you want to establish good credit because you want the interest rate that you're watching across those commercials, you want to be able to actually apply for those types of loans. So what's happening is they're giving you information in those advertisements of great interest rates and great down payment requirements, minimum down payment requirements. But what they're not telling you, that's in the bottom of that little fine print, is good credit is required or higher credit scores are required. So if you go to them and say, but I don't have credit, and you're still applying for that program, now you're not eligible. So step one is establishing credit. That's number one. Step two is establishing good credit and making your payments on time.
And not only that, Amy, but we live in a country where credit really drives everything that we do. Right now we're talking about mortgages, but in reality, credit has gotten to the point that it determines your type of job, the neighborhood you're going to live in. Because think about it. If your credit is at 580, 600, 620, your payment and your rate so much higher that you can't afford a higher price home.
That's right.
So it's also going to determine your environment, who lives around you, and many other aspects that we don't think about that will eventually affect your life. And unfortunately, there's so little education when it comes to how or what is good credit, or how do I get to have good credit, or what are the things that it's really manipulating or driving my home style every single day. And we don't think about it because we just go day in, day out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I tell people is, again, going back to my earlier statement about advertising, absolutely, 580. You'll see advertisements from my company. Yes. I have flyers that say minimum credit score requirements are 580. Well, 580, it's not too difficult to reach the 580 credit score mark. However, what does that mean?
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you have good credit.
Right.
Remember, when you're up in the 700s is really when you're seeing the better interest rates.
Yes.
640 is that tipping point where we see interest rates get better for people. When you're down in the 580 mark, absolutely I can get you into an FHA loan. However, number one, you're not getting any down payment assistance. That means if you need help from any agency, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
All agencies have a minimum credit score requirement of about 640. Every once in a while you could find a 620, but that's very far and few in between. Automatically your interest rate will be much, much higher. Automatically your closing costs are going to be higher. So yeah, would you like to buy a house at 5.8 with a 580 credit score? You absolutely can, and I'm happy to help. But remember, you will pay for it. And what does that mean? That means now if you're paying extra for that house, you may not get the $500,000 house. You may really be in the $350,000 range, which is a much more competitive market. Fewer houses available to you, less likely for you to get that house quicker. When, in my opinion, if you just take the time to work on your credit or establish yourself correctly, you'll be able to get into the house with the proper interest rates and maybe even get help from government agencies that are offering some assistance if that's what's needed. If you have your own money now and you have good credit, now you've taken yourself up to the next level. You can completely buy your home on your own with the best interest rates available.
And and people think that, okay, well, I'm at this level of credit, and they really believe that it's going to take a long time. When in essence, it could be a process of 4 months, 6 months, and let's just say worst case scenario, 1 year. Well, 1 year compared to 30 years that you're going to be overpaying on a house, when we start really comparing it, apples to apples, it's really not that much. Because we're not talking about a savings of $500 here or there. We're talking $200,000, $300,000 that if you were to save, even at 0% interest rates, now you could say, well, you know what? At least 30 years from now, I'm going to have $300,000 in my savings versus I just gave the bank an extra $300,000 because I couldn't wait 4 months, because I didn't understand what a point was, because I didn't understand the difference that it would take me from 580 to 680, right?
Absolutely.
And the lack of education, because we're speaking a different language to our clients. We're speaking something that maybe it's the first time they're hearing. And the fact is that we need to really start paying attention to our future.
That's right.
Because nobody else out there is going to, and that's whether they work with us or they decide to work with somebody else, is let's educate ourselves. Let's understand the language that we are speaking, whether it's when it comes to credit or whether it comes to loans, right? I mean, even if we go a little bit off the subject and say even the communication or the words that we use when it comes to talking to our children is a different way of communicating for them to understand what we're trying to convey to them, right? So when it comes to something so important like purchasing a house, because in my head I think credit, I remember I bought a house with the NINA program, no income, no assets. It was just, oh look, here's my credit report. They didn't even care that whether I had a job, no job. My payment was $5,000 a month, right? Just looking at my credit. And that I thought was amazing. They gave me the house less than 20 days, right?
Right.
But at the same time there's programs out there that will say, look, if you have 580, the bank doesn't care. The bank is happy that you're going to be paying such high interest rate because they know you're going to be locked in at least for the next 5 to 8 to 10 years, and it's all money for them.
And remember, with a 580 credit score, now you're having to come in with your own money.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
You're having to come up with extra money. So we'll just use FHA as an example. FHA is fantastic. I love that program. Use that for many, many buyers, especially first-time home buyers. Minimum down payment requirements, 3.5%. That should be pretty darn easy. However, if you're having to pay that 3.5% on your own, let's just take a $100,000 house. 3.5%, your down payment is 3.5%, $3,500. That's your down payment requirement that you have to come up with. But you also have to pay for your own closing costs. Now, let's say another 3%. So now that's $6,500 that you have to come in with total. But automatically, because you have the lower credit score, I guarantee you're going to have to pay additional fees. Excuse me. So now we're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 to buy that house. That's $100,000 house. Now multiply that times $300,000 or $500,000 house that you want to purchase. Think about how that number changes. And because you've chosen to purchase that house at 580 with a 580 credit score, automatically you're going to have to pay for all of it out of your own pocket.
Okay.
Now, when you move into other programs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, conventional products, automatically minimum credit score requirements are 620.
Yes.
Okay, so now you know for sure you can't even get a conventional loan. If you got a conventional loan, it's a hard money loan. What does that mean? Minimum.
Or
Minimum.
higher interest rates.
Right. higher interest rates.
Yes.
Very loan terms that are not
Favorable to you.
favorable, exactly.
To
Perfect,
you.
perfect. And down payment requirements of 15 to 20%
Yes.
at very minimum.
Yes.
So now let's talk about the veterans. Okay, maybe a veteran might be able to get into a property at 580. I guarantee you, VA loans always have the best interest rates. Not for a veteran with 580. He's
Isn't
not
that
gonna,
amazing?
I love
Isn't
VA
that
loans,
amazing?
but we can't. I mean, banks just are not offering the best interest rates for somebody with a lower credit score.
And what really strikes a chord with me, right now that we're talking veterans, is a lot of the credit reports that I see from veterans is because they were away and they didn't have anyone assisting them here to make those minimum payments on things that they already had going on.
Right.
Or, the money didn't hit on time on the bank account, and so now they've fallen behind. That brings that credit score, and they're out there fighting for us. They're
That's
out
right.
there fighting for these banks to make the money.
That's right.
And yet now when they come back and say, I want to buy a house with a good rate, with a good payment, they can't.
We're punishing them for helping us.
They can't.
One of the things that I
It's
tell
crazy.
my clients, absolutely, when they come to me, they have a collection account or something that got away from them. Look, I tried, but I was out.
Yes.
I was out of the country, and I remind them, this is the time to focus on your credit, and that's when I turn to people like you, especially because this is where they need the help.
Mhm.
When I counsel them, I tell them it's not necessarily the right thing to pay that collection account off. Don't pay it off just yet. Don't do that. Wait until you have
Yes.
counseling, because now when you've paid off that collection account, whatever happens at the agency is one thing, but on my credit report that I'm using for your mortgage, now it looks like a current collection account. Which
Yes.
what's that going to do? It's just going to drive your score down even more.
Even
so.
more.
Going
Yes.
back to your statement earlier, you said it could take 30, 60, 90 days, it could 6 months or a year. The average incubation time period for my clientele, we looked at what my average time is working with them, is 6 to 12 months. That's how long it takes when I'm working with a client, and that's usually because most of my clients do need some help, and I would much rather I prefer working on whatever they need to do, whether it's focusing on credit, maybe gathering a couple $1,000s more of their own money, waiting for that income tax refund to come in, and letting it sit there. Maybe mom and dad are willing to give them a couple $1,000s. Get that money. Let's put all of our ducks in a row before we go house hunting, because when we rush it and we force it, we end up paying more.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily the right way to go.
And you figure time is gonna go by anyways.
Absolutely.
Whether you prepare for it, whether you do something about it, time will go by anyways. And the sad part is that human nature tends to make the choice of freezing and not doing anything.
No, yeah, not making any
A choice.
not making any choices or not taking
You're making
any
a choice,
action.
but not really making
Yeah.
a choice.
Yes.
No action at all. So my favorite borrower is somebody that he came to me in January, and he really didn't have a lot of credit, and he said he didn't want to use credit. He went through a nasty divorce and was taken to the cleaners, and the whole story.
Yes.
And he chose not to have credit. He had maybe 1 or 2 items on his credit, older, but for all intensive purposes, it was non-existent because it was old and he wasn't using his credit. I counseled him through, and the first thing I told him was, establish yourself, get yourself established. He opened up 2 new credit cards, used them, paid them off, followed exactly what you say to do. Use them, make sure you're not over the 30% mark, keeping a small balance. I think he carried like a $10 balance. and he kept rolling it over and playing with his credit a bit. That was January. By December, and he was very low. I want to say in the low sixes, maybe early fives. December, 1 year, moved into his house with a 720 credit score and $3,000 out of his pocket because he actually was able to get assistance from the state of California.
That's awesome.
First time home buyer. They paid for all of his down payment and the majority of his closing costs, $3,000 out of his pocket. And the reason he paid $3,000 out of his pocket as opposed to no money is because he chose to have different insurance, paid a little extra because now he had it. And he had $10,000-$15,000 in the bank of his own money. He was scraping his pennies together, saving it. But because he went from almost no credit and not a good credit score all the way up into 720, he now was eligible for every bit of it and is getting an additional tax credit from the government. So each year when he files his taxes, because he already got the assistance and because he was eligible for the tax credit, he now is getting larger refunds every year. And that's nothing other than just taking your time. Yes. So I strongly encourage everybody to focus on credit as the very first aspect. Absolutely. And if you need help, that's all you